The first project, Warlock, was a game that I had never heard of, and I saw on sale during the countless Steam sales. So I decided to take a chance because it was only a couple of bucks, and I ended up liking it a lot. So when I found out there was a sequel, I immediately got it, but I did not see that it was in early access. That isn't always a bad thing, nor a good thing, but with this one, you can definitely tell it was in early access. Now, there is something I want to get out the way real quick. This game has been updated quite a few times. I just haven't had the chance to play the newer updated one to see what they fixed and what they haven't fixed. So this is a bit of an old script, but it is what it is. I'm assuming a lot of the stuff may still apply. If not, oh well. So just like the first game, there really isn't a story. The only context that we have is that you're playing as a guy named Palmer that is the apprentice of the guy from the first one, and you're trying to find him. And that's pretty much it story-wise. So just like last time, we're going to go straight into everything else. This game has way more going on than the last game. Let's start off with the art style. And this time around, I'm not a huge fan of it. The reason why is because you can tell that they've switched from the pixel art style from the first game to 3D models this time around. That's not a bad thing overall. The problem lies within the textures for the enemies. They tried to do both and it doesn't look good at all. They essentially put pixel art filters over the 3D models and threw a cell shaded filter on top and called it a day, which completely clashes with the environments and kind of takes you out of it. The environments look really good and feel a lot more lived in than the first game. It's just when you see enemies running towards you or explode into chunks and you see these two filters stacked on top of each other, it just looks really bad. You have no choice but to get over because the amount of enemies that spawn has now increased tenfold, mainly if you play on hard, which we'll talk about later. But the enemy count is no joke. There are a bunch of enemies this time around, like too many enemies, so I'm only going to go over a few. So you have your basic enemies that just walk up to you and hit you, and they come by the masses. The real treat are the other enemies that you encounter because they all have weapons of some sort. The first big threat that you encounter are the succubus, and these things have cannons, and the cannons shoot fast and hit hard. They are also some of the fastest enemies in the game, so you want to take them out as quick as possible and always look out for them. The next big threat are the shotgun guys because even though they move slow, they hit hard. Also, the range on them is fucking ridiculous. They basically can shoot you from across the map. There's these big lumbering pig things that have like these mace on the end of their hands, and they move extremely slow, but they hit extremely hard as well. And they're honestly some of the hardest hitting enemies. Those are only 3 of the enemies though in this game, and like I said, there are plenty more. So because of this, you're always on your toes and always have to switch up your strategy for every single moment. This time around, different parts of the enemy body take different percentage of damage. Headshots do the most at 200%. Body shots do 100%. Legs do 70%. So hopefully you're good at getting headshots because they do the most damage and will be crucial on hard. Now there's an elephant in this room that I have to address when it comes to these enemies. That elephant is the aim by aim that they have, and it's a serious problem. The way enemies with projectiles can snipe you from across the map no matter what is honestly bullshit. For example, I mentioned this earlier, the shotgun dudes can literally shoot you from across the map. Let me repeat this again. A shotgun dude, which in most video games are considered up close and personal, will pretty much shoot you far away like if they had a sniper rifle, and you won't know until your life is damn near gone. It becomes a bit of a sensory overload at some point, and it's not fun, especially when you're playing on hard. The amount of enemies that this game throws at you is absurd. Pair that up with some enemies being able to shoot through walls or just straight up walk through them. It's the perfect recipe for a bunch of unfun fuckery that will piss you off real quick. Sometimes it doesn't even matter how much you try to duck and dodge and move around, you'll still get lit up. So the enemies and the way that they work seriously need some balancing. I understand this is in early access, but this is a serious problem that needs to be reevaluated. To compensate for the mass amount of enemies and all the different types of them, the levels are huge now. These levels are so big and have so many layers to them that you can easily spend 20 to 25 minutes in them. That's not even including looking for secrets placed throughout the map. That's just navigating your way through the map to get to the end. So big, in fact, that they had to add a mini map to help you traverse these levels, but the mini map comes with its own problems, and we'll get to that soon. With this expansion, the levels also comes with some verticality, which also means that they added a jump button. So now certain levels you can climb on top of buildings and stuff. What also comes with this is platforming, which is a great addition to the level design and exploration. Just be aware though that this game once again is in early access and it's buggy as hell, so you might get stuck in some geometry from time to time. The checkpoint system though is pretty good, so you won't be set back too far if you have to reload. So like I said earlier, they added a mini map because these levels are so huge now. The problem is that the mini map is really hard to read. All the layers are just stacked on top of each other. Now the map does highlight and move around depending on where you're at to let you know where you are and stuff like that, but it still doesn't help. The problem with the mini map is that it's really hard to read because all the layers are stacked on top of each other. The map highlights as you move around the level to let you know where you are, but that still doesn't help. So most of the time you just be roaming around aimlessly trying to find the exit if you explore the level like they want you to. So the mini map needs some serious rework and restructuring. The movement and shooting in this game is way better. It's one of those things where I just can't describe it. Looking at the gameplay though, you can definitely tell. It needed it though with all the new additions to combat. Palmer has 3 abilities and 4 weapons that he can use during combat. The first ability is Akimbo, which allows you to have 2 of whatever weapon you're holding. The second ability is a frost spell that freezes enemies. The third one and last ability is a fire spell. Well, that lets you shoot fire out of your hands. These abilities are cool but very situational depending on the difficulty. Each ability has its own orbs you can pick up to help speed up the cooldown time. When it comes to weapons, you get a sword, assault rifle, shotgun, and cannon launcher. I have a lot to say about that cannon launcher, but we'll get to that in a little bit. Each weapon has 2 paths you can take when it comes to upgrading them. For example, the assault rifle can be upgraded to a laser rifle. The next upgrade in that path is turning into a railgun when you aim down sight. The other path is turning it into a heavy rifle, which basically turns it to an LMG. The next upgrade for that path is a burst fire that unloads a bunch of bullets really fast. So when you upgrade your weapon, just make sure you know what you want. You can't go back once you've committed to an upgrade path. Now onto the cannon launcher. And all I can say is that it is one of the worst and one of the best weapons at the same time. The thing is basically the grenades from the first game all over again. The cannon launcher in its base form is okay. It's when you upgrade it to the grenade launcher the headaches start to appear again. Now granted, once again, the game is in early access, so things are bound to change and be fixed. Even with this though, it's all over the place to the point to where it's almost unusable. You'll shoot an enemy with it and it'll just fall off somewhere else. Just like the Big Brother grenades from the first game, sometimes it hits the enemies, sometimes it doesn't. Where this thing in this game really starts to fuck you is when there's a bunch of enemies that you have to shoot. If there's a dead body in the mix, the grenade will hit the hitbox of the dead enemy and explode. Yes, you heard me correctly. It will hit the hitbox of the dead enemy and explode. But it gets even worse than that. The next upgrade for the grenade launcher is rapid fire, where it'll shoot out 4 grenades back to back. So if you decide to do that and there's a dead enemy there, you see where this is going. Pair that up with the splashback damage if you're too close, which most likely you'll be because of how fast these enemies move, you'll end up dead in a matter of no time. And it's honestly completely stupid. Yet again, another weapon that can clear out a bunch of enemies real quick, you can barely use because of its stupid properties. If you manage to survive though, this game gives you more than enough health to recover. You start off with 100 life points, just like most games. Large med packs, of course, give you the most health. Where this game starts to give you more life is in these small vials that certain enemies drop. These vials can extend your life beyond 100 points to where you can get up to 200 points if you grab enough of them. So if you don't run around and pick up every little health item that you see, you can easily recover from whatever damage pretty fast. Project Warlock 2 is a solid follow-up to the first one, but needs a lot of work. I know it's in early access, but I think even with that label attached, they should have probably waited a little bit longer to release it. Even with all of that though, I had a blast and I can't wait for its updates.